What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be talking about a new craze in the horror scene. That's right, it's a spoiler-free review of Skinamarink, and it's about time I finally get to see it. So let's get into it. So I have a lot to say about this movie. I will be 100% spoiler free, but there's really not a lot to spoil in this movie. It's more about the experience. I think there is like a perfect storm that is kind of brewed to get us to this point. And what I mean by that is for the past however many years now, we had to deal with the theaters shutting down for obvious reasons because of all the big C, right? Well, in doing so, because of that, theaters became a little bit more open to accepting smaller movies into the scene, like Terrifier 2. It became a little bit more accessible. So I think a lot of these films are getting a lot more exposure now, which is great when it comes to horror, because Skinamarink is definitely a horror movie that is not done in a typical story-driven fashion. It's kind of an experience. I wouldn't say it's a movie that I'm going to rewatch a whole bunch or anything like that. A lot of people have compared this movie and, of course, The Outwaters to the Blair Witch Project and sort of how that came out, because it was sort of a new kind of format of style in a way that really wasn't popular or popularized at the time. Now, do I feel like this particular lo-fi storytelling is going to be the regular norm? No. But I think there's obviously some things in this movie that, while it doesn't do like a regular movie, is going to open people's minds to spending more time in specific areas of regular movies to really bring out the scare. And I think in particular, that is a good thing ultimately for everyone, especially those who want to be scared. And let's face it, if you've been watching horror as long as us, we're kind of chasing the high these days. So getting a little buzz off of something is kind of a nice feeling to get once in a while. And Skinamarink kind of does that. So what is it all about? It's about two kids who are waking up in the middle of the night, missing their father. They don't know where he's at. All the doors and windows have completely disappeared into walls, and they don't know what to do. So you, as the viewer, are kind of put off to the side a little bit in some of these shots. They're not focused on the kids, maybe their feet, maybe like the top of a doorway where you can see light kind of shining in. It's really done to kind of create this sort of atmospheric thing. Now, there's good and bad for that. Yes, it creates atmosphere, but it also may bore some people because they're used to seeing like this really long story-driven movie where characters talk to each other on camera and then a spooky thing happens and it pops out at you. This is definitely not that. This is more of an experimental horror movie that is supposed to put you in the center of this really hellish landscape that children are experiencing, which is horrifying, but not really show you anything that's going on, just the outer fringes. It really is trying to live and necessitate that sort of unknown fear that H.P. Lovecraft always talked about. Now, a lot of movies these days, they really kind of lead the audience in a lot of ways, and I think this movie is not for those people that like that kind of thing. I think people who are creative types who like to envision, maybe even read, to envision like things that are described in the movie. This movie has a very kind of mysterious thing going on with it. Like, while you're figuring out what's going on with these kids, you're sort of kind of experiencing this sort of mystery unfolding, and you're hearing these kids sort of whisper and say things under their breath about where's dad and why is this, and you sort of kind of piece together this backstory of like what's going on. There's an event that happens in the movie before the dad disappears, and that's when everything goes kind of haywire. But again, we're talking about the camera's focused on the top portion of the room, never on the characters, so it's going for this very low fidelity sort of thing that's kind of artistic. Some people are calling art house, and I guess it could be considered that. It just feels more of like an experiment in trying to elicit some sort of atmosphere or fear in general. And I think with a lot of movies, and I mentioned this in my Outwaters review, which I did before this. If you like this movie, by the way, go check that review out because you might like it too. But I mentioned that sometimes movies miss that sort of element where they need to focus on the fear. They get so caught up in trying to match the writing and all this other thing, they forget to smell the roses. And horror in particular, the scary type, is about kind of smelling the roses and kind of getting you in the mood, so to speak, before you get scared. You know, it's an hour and 30 minutes, not a whole lot going on in the movie. It is a little too much for them to sit and kind of be patient, you know? This is definitely not something that a lot of people are going to love, but I'm surprised it's already doing really well in the theaters, and some people absolutely love it, while others, they just don't get it. They don't understand why it's being made, and a lot of them, I think, feel threatened by it, which is very odd. I see a lot of people that get upset, and I won't gripe on this, but I see a lot of people getting upset about the movie and making a lot of jokes, and, you know, I get it. It's popular to hate on because it's different. One thing's for sure, I understand that this may not be a movie for everybody, but do we always have to, like, hate bash things out of existence because we don't like them? Let's go! Or can we just, you know, say it wasn't for us and move on? Yeah, it's not going to be for everyone. It was never really intended to be. It blew up because it's different. That's what the director wanted to do. Guaranteed wanted to do something completely different that you hadn't seen before. And sometimes it takes a wild swing to do that, especially in nowadays where we've done everything. So just a little food for thought, guys. Now, for me, it is a little bit outside of my realm of enjoyment, but I still can kind of look at it from the perspective of what the director wanted to do and still see if they executed it well. And I think what they tried and attempted to do was excellently executed. It's not really about, hey, is this a great movie to check out? It's more of like, is it a good movie to experience? And I think, yes, it is a good movie to experience for a change. Something different than, you know, every remake that we get every year. Now, Kyle Edward Ball is the director, writer, and creator of this. He actually did a short before this called Heck. The similar story about a kid who wakes up with the TV blaring, and I think that kind of gave him the fuel that he needed to make this movie into a feature-length film. But I think ultimately even he will admit that this is a little bit more experimental than most people can and will handle. But, you know, it's okay. It's in theaters. I mean, pretty rare to see these kind of experiences in theaters. So now if I had to compare, because The Outwaters is another movie that I really enjoyed that was kind of a similar experience in this, but I think visually it gave us a little bit more. This movie, Skinamarink, has like some scary moments in it that, you know, you're staring at a dark doorway for a long period of time, and the humming and the sound design and everything is just kind of sitting there, and it almost feels like something is going to jump out at you at any moment. There are a couple of jump scares in the film, 3 or 4 that kind of jarred me like very heavily, to the point where I just felt that white feeling go over you where you just like it got me pretty good. And I was at my desk watching this, and so I was like kind of like intently staring at the goddamn screen. But like, there's no gore, there's a little blood, there's, you know, it's hard to really describe this kind of film because it's all kind of done through the eyes of a child, and some of the camera work moves with the child. Some of it just stays static in a corner, or half of it on the screen and part of it on some Lego set. It's done to kind of like throw back to a style from like the 90s, and it has this sort of really interesting plot, which, you know, waking up to no doors and windows is pretty fucking terrifying. It almost sounds like The House of Leaves in a way to me, if you've ever read that book, where it's like a mystery and you're like, the book itself is a mystery. It's not done in a regular storytelling way. You literally will flip through the book just to figure out what's going on, because there's like stories written all the way through in one section of the book, or, you know, different parts move around, and it's kind of meant to elicit an experience like this movie. So, you know, it's not going to be for everyone, that's for damn sure. I already see people like really upset about this movie, and I gotta be honest, like, hey, it's okay. You're gonna be all right.
Stop it. Get some help.
Let's put it this way. There are people who make films, scary films, to try to scare you that are unable to get the atmosphere that this guy did in a movie. And he didn't even do it with a regular style movie. He did it with static cameras, slight movements, and building an atmosphere with the sound. So there's something to be said about that. I don't know what to score this. I have nothing to compare it to. You know, it's so different. I'll put it this way. I went in to just have an experience. Whether I liked it or not, it doesn't really matter. I still got a little spooked out. I turned the lights out. I put the headphones on. I turned up the volume. Like, say what you want about it, but I think there's something to it. And I think a lot of the stuff that's in it could be applied to other films to make them better. Because this is a perfect movie to kind of show you that you can make things really scary that you wouldn't normally be scared of by just doing a few things. The movie still may be in theaters now, but I definitely know that you can watch it on Shudder because I just did. So if you want to watch it there, you can. Check your theaters to see if it's still up. I'm not sure. But anyway, I would love to hear what you guys think about this film. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's not something I will pop on all the time, but it is an achievement, and you know, it should get respect for it, just like the Blair Witch got respect for doing something from practically nothing. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm just glad we're getting new experiences in general and that we're not completely worn out from originality anymore, because, you know, the genre kind of needs to have a kick in the ass sometimes. And I think this is one of those things that might spin it in some direction that might be new. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If this is your first time here, hit the like and subscribe button and the little bell notification if you want to know when I got a new video. But thanks for coming by, and as always, long live the void.